I'd grab some tea because this is going to be a long one. Hey guys, what is up and how are you doing today? So I thought I'd switch things up, and rather than doing a weekly vlog, because I'm back in Oxford, I thought I'd record a video on my Oxford application process and how I got in, and some tips and tricks for you to see what it takes to get into Oxford University. I know that everyone's application process is a little different depending on where you come from, how much support you have from your school, things like that. So I hope to give you my take on how I got into the university, the process that I went through. If any of you are applying to the university in the next few months or the next few years, that it helps you along the way. I'm going to begin by going through the sort of process that I had to go through when applying to Oxford. If you have any questions, leave them down below. I'd be happy to answer as many as possible. My name is Manny, welcome to my channel. So I usually make vlogs of my time at Oxford and life in general, travelling, etc. If you haven't subscribed, click the button on the screen right. So a little bit about me. My name is Melinda, most people call me Manny, and I'm a second year studying computer science and philosophy at University College. Some of you may recognise me from Oxvlog. So for the last year I spent vlogging my life on an outreach project that was actually started by Simon, if any of you saw his channel before. So I was vlogging on that and really liked that channel, started my own. I always knew from a young age that I wanted to go to Oxford. I was one of those kids that was like annoyingly obsessed with Oxford. So I think it was as early as like year 6 or 7, I always knew that I wanted to go. Didn't really know what I wanted to study, but I definitely knew that I wanted to go. And I think it started off by me wanting to study physics. Now the first question you're probably thinking is, why not Cambridge? And to be honest, I didn't really have an answer to that question early on. I was sort of in love with Oxford, the city, the buildings. Cambridge, I don't think you could beat this with this. But seriously, I visited Cambridge on a taster day. I think it was an engineering taster day, and I didn't really like how spread out everything was. Whereas Oxford was quite put together, most of the colleges were near the centre, it was a really nice sort of city, and well, Oxford's just better. So I went to an international school in New Delhi where there was near no history of anyone going to Oxbridge. So my school couldn't really help me that much, in the sense that they didn't really know what admissions test I was supposed to be taking, they didn't really know how to prepare for them, so I was pretty much on my own for the most of it. And I'm sure there are many of you out there that are probably going to be on your own for that part of the process as well. And all I want to say is, don't worry. There are enough resources online on the university's website for you to be able to practice past papers, get a hang of what kind of questions are asked, and just get yourself familiar with the sort of questions and the format of the paper. At my school, there are a few of us that are applying to Oxford that year, and one person had got in the year before, no, 2 people had got in the year before me for the first time in absolutely ages, and that really gave me hope to get in. So I was like, if they can do it, I'm pretty sure that I have it in me to do it. So the one thing I have to say first of all is, don't lose hope. Don't think that because no one's ever gotten in from your school, or because it looks very difficult, or you don't have the same support that people from other schools may have, that it's not for you. Definitely give it your 100%, because you can do it. I came from a school where I think 3 people in the last 15 years got in, and I still got in. So don't think about it that way. They're going to look at you independently of the school that you've come from. There were so many people that were ready to discourage me. There were so many people that told me not to waste a place on my UCAS form and to apply somewhere else. And in hindsight, I'm so happy I wasn't dissuaded by those people. So I actually really wanted to apply for physics. As I got closer to my GCSEs, I thought, yeah, I'm going to apply for physics because I was quite mathematically inclined and I really enjoyed physics at the time. So I started looking at the PAT. It was so early for me. I don't even know why I was stressing myself with things like that. But I started looking at the physics aptitude test. I started looking at the physics entrance requirements, and I was setting my heart on physics. But the important thing to remember is, just because you've latched onto one subject so early doesn't mean you have to go through with it. It ended up being that I wanted to then study maths and then study economics, and then I sort of came to computer science. So it took me a long time to kind of get over the fact that lots of people were telling me to not do it. I was like, maybe I haven't got it in me, maybe I shouldn't be the one applying, maybe it's not for me. But then when I got my GCSE results, I realised that I had just as much chance as anyone else. So then in the summer between my IB, so that would be AS and A2 for anyone doing A-levels, I went randomly to visit Oxford University. I was going to come on the open day, but there was one day where me and my parents were nearby. We were near Oxford, city centre, and I thought, why don't I just pop in and have a look? So I think it was a week before the open day that I just walked into the computer science department on an odd day in their vacation, and I walked up to the front desk and said that I'm a prospective applicant and I'd really like to have a look around. And one of the helpers at the department came out, and we had about a good hour and a half chat about the admissions process, about the mat, the sort of help that was available. And so one tip I have for you guys is, if you've missed an open day, doesn't matter. Don't worry about it and just come to Oxford. The departments and the colleges are always open for prospective students, and you're making their life so much easier by coming to visit, because they're not having to come out and look for students that are interested or passionate to apply. So if you want to have a look at Oxford, I definitely recommend to come on an open day. But if an open day doesn't suit you, and if the dates clash, just turn up. Just turn up to Oxford, because there's always someone there that could show you around. And having met someone in the department made me feel so much better about applying, because the woman at the department was so, she could answer all my questions that the sort of frequently asked questions on the website just couldn't answer. And so that I found really, really useful. At that point, that was when I realised that computer science was definitely the subject for me. There was a course that I didn't really know about, so I was looking to apply for pure computer science, but then when I got there, the lady at the department said there's another course called computer science and philosophy if you're interested in that. And at the IB at that point, I was doing maths, physics, economics, computer science, Spanish, and English literature and language. So I very much enjoyed writing essays as well. So I went home, I did a bit of research on the subject, and I really, really found myself quite interested in the philosophical side of computer science and like artificial intelligence and things like that. Then a week later, I went on the open day. I visited around loads of colleges, and the one that I fell in love with was Hertford. Not only because they had the Bridge of Sighs, and for those of you that don't know what that looks like, it looks a bit like this. They had the highest number of places for the course that I wanted to study, which was computer science and philosophy. So I thought, why don't I give that one a go? And I ended up putting in an application to Hertford. Now, I was so excited but scared at this point that anytime anything happened, like I got an email to say that they had received my application, anytime I saw the word Oxford in my email address, like my heart would just jump. And then came the time for the admissions tests. I had absolutely no help from school for the admissions test, to the extent that if I would ask my teacher in school for questions on it, like many a times they just wouldn't know the answer, or they wouldn't know like what kind of response they were expecting. I was very worried about the mat. Like for me, that looked like the hardest part of the application for me, because I felt like I was at an inherent disadvantage because I didn't have training or classes or anything in my school, and there was nothing to really help me. There was this online course that I did. I think it was offered by MEI, which is like the further maths group in the UK. And it was like an online course that sort of helped you prepare for the mat. But in hindsight, that wasn't very helpful for me specifically, because that was a course that was helping students who are applying to study maths. And so if you're looking at applying to study maths, I said that's a very useful course, and I don't think it's a very expensive course. It was definitely under the £50 mark, or under it was about £40 as far as I remember. But I'll try and link that down below. It was quite useful because it was a professor from Warwick who was going through math questions. It was like a big group chat with like 100, 150 people on it, and everyone could just ask questions, and he was just going through questions bit by bit. So I found that useful, but the thing is that I wasn't going to be answering all the pure maths questions in the paper. I would have to answer, he was only explaining how to do the pure maths questions, so it only helped me for the multiple choice in the beginning. But it was still, for me, at that point, I was like, some help is better than no help at all. And then came to the day of the mat. So my school I couldn't sit the mat in my school, and I had to sit it at a test centre that was about 3 hours away from my school. So it was a trek to get there, and that was probably the worst exam I had ever sat in my life. I came out and cried for about 2 or 3 hours after, thinking that my chances to go to Oxford had completely dissolved, and there was no way that I was going to get an interview. I don't even remember answering more than half of the paper, and I found it so terribly difficult. There were two questions that I was so set on that I could do, like the style of questions that would come every year. And that year they just completely missed those kind of questions out. It was like a completely new style of paper, completely new pattern, and I was just not ready for that at all. Over the next like few weeks, I sort of was mentally preparing myself to the fact that I was probably going to get a rejection in the post soon, and I was just not, there was no way I was going to get in. And I think it was about I remember the date, it was November the 27th that I got an email to say that I had got an interview, and it was 5 o'clock in the morning, I was about to go to school. It was a very oddly timed email. It was 5 in the morning, I was about to get up an hour later, and somehow the phone vibrated and I woke up and I saw it and I was like, oh my god, what if it's an interview? And I was like, no, it's 5 o'clock, it can't be an interview email. Opened it and it was an interview. It was an email that was inviting me to interview. And I was so happy because I felt like I had somehow escaped the hardest part of what seemed for me the hardest part of the process. But what I'd realised in all of this, worrying about the entrance exam, is I'd sort of worried about the interview itself. And that was when I realised that, okay, I actually have got a very good chance of getting in now. And if there are any of you out there that do get to the interview stage, whether or not you get in past that, that is such a big feat in itself, because getting an interview at Oxford, it means that they've been through your application and it is definitely worthy of a place on paper.
On paper, you are literally my type.
I was absolutely terrified for my interviews because I didn't know what to expect. And part of me wanted to prepare for all the general why Oxford, why computer science and philosophy questions. There are people outside the window, so I'm going to pretend as if I'm not recording. So, what I very quickly realised is that the nature of all the mathsy science interviews are quite mathematical, in that I had 5 interviews and they were really intense. So the thing is with Oxford is that you will always have interviews at the college that you've applied to, or the one that has given you an interview call, and then one at another college, well, for most subjects. So I had 2 at my first college, which was Hertford, one for computer science and one for philosophy. And then I had 2 at Balliol, which was one for computer science and one for philosophy. And then I had another one at Hertford again, which was for another college. So because it got very late in the evening on the 3rd day, they didn't want me to have to go to another college, so the tutors at Hertford interviewed me for another college, but in hindsight I don't remember them telling me which college it was for. But the important thing is that the number of interviews you have shows no indication of whether or not you've got a place. I thought after interview number 5 there was no way I was going to get in, because I had been seen by so many people, and if they knew they wanted me, they would have figured it out by now. But the only thing that you can tell from getting more interviews is that they still haven't decided. That means you are definitely worthy of a place, because if you weren't, they would have figured that out by the first go and just said no. If you just have the single few interviews, what you can judge from that is that you've either got the place or you haven't. But if you get multiple interviews, that means you definitely are worthy of a place, and there's definitely some discussion on whether or not you should be here. So most of the questions I were asked were very mathematical, all mathsy based, nothing too computer sciencey. One of my interviews went on for about over an hour, which seems terrifying, but the actual interview didn't seem that long because we were having a conversation about something that I really enjoyed. And it was a lot of questions back and forth, and there were bits when I was actually asking general questions about things. So I remember I was asked a really odd question. I was asked how the sine or the cosine button on the calculator actually work, and I was so confused. And then it went on to the whole discussion about Taylor series and approximation and things that you would have no clue about unless you'd done further maths or whichever it was in. And then I started asking questions about that because the stuff that he was telling me about was actually really interesting to me. So we ended up having a full-on conversation. I remember at the end of my interview, he said that it was almost like he'd just had a tutorial with someone, which was quite nice to hear, but also I was terrified because I thought that if my interview had gone on for an hour, they obviously hadn't figured out whether they wanted me or not, or they would have just let me go. So the thing is that the important thing is just not read into anything. Do not read into anything they do, because more often than not, they just say something without thinking about it. So don't get caught up in what they say. And then the waiting period started. And I finally heard from them. I got a letter in the post, and the letter said that I had received, and the first 3 lines were, "I am pleased to inform you," and that was it. I just broke down onto the floor and started crying because I'd felt like all the odds were against me when I was applying, and that I went from a school that not very many people ever got into Oxford. I applied for a really obscure course. No one in my family ever went to Oxbridge. And it was just, I just felt like something I'd wanted from such a young age, it just didn't seem like it was possible to actually happen in the end. So don't ever give up. Don't ever listen to the people who say that you can't get in. My offer was 39 IB points with a 7.66 at high level, 7 in maths high level. So it was like, for me, it seemed like a tough offer in that I was kind of worried about getting the 7 in maths, but luckily it happened. What an open offer means is that I had definitely gotten a place at Oxford, but they just hadn't figured out which college I was going to be in yet. So I would find out on results day which college I was actually going to go to, and I ended up at University College. University College is the oldest college in Oxford, allegedly. And having been here for a year now, I absolutely love this college. I can't imagine myself in any other college, even Hertford for that matter. Just because whichever college you end up in, you absolutely love and adore, and I feel like Univ is now my home. I'm actually at Univ right now helping out for a summer course, and it's honestly a place that I love spending my time. So don't worry about which college you end up in. When you go onto the open day, just pick a college that you really like, and if it's in your fate to be there, you'll end up there. But whichever college you end up at, all Oxford colleges are great. I don't know anyone that's at a college that they don't like it. Another thing that I thought I would mention is that if you got to this stage, or even if you didn't get up to the interviews or now, and you don't get an offer, don't be disheartened. At the time, it does seem like it's the end of the world. I have friends who applied and didn't get into Oxford and have gone to continue their degrees at other universities and are more than happy there as well. The one thing that I never ever considered was whether Oxford was for me. Being here, the workload is intense. It's crazy. And at times, I often question, would I have had a better time being at another university, not being as grumpy half the time because I have so much work, or actually enjoying my social life and not constantly being worried about work? So wherever you end up, you will be happy. If you don't get into Oxford, even if you've always wanted to go, it's not the end of the world, because there will be a university for you and you will be happy wherever you end up. And above all, sometimes just don't listen to other people. Don't let that negative energy put you down. Wherever you're from, whichever background you come from, whether you have been to, where everyone in your family's been to Oxbridge or been to university, and you're just another person in the family going, or no one in your family's ever been to university, whether you're from a background that is seen as traditionally an Oxbridge background, or a normal Oxford background, or one that isn't, just don't listen to any of that. If you have the passion and the enthusiasm for your subject and think you can show that or you think you'd flourish in a tutorial system, just apply to Oxford, because that is the kind of student they're looking for. They're not looking for people who know all the answers in an interview or know exactly how to do the questions. They're looking for people with potential, because that's what really works here. And if you think that you like discussing your subject with people, like the idea of being asked questions that may seem rather outside of the box, then I think Oxford is definitely for you, and don't let anybody tell you else. There are enough people in the world to discourage you from it, and not enough people to encourage. So definitely apply to Oxford, or Cambridge for that matter, or even if it's someone telling you not to apply to university and you know that you can do it, apply to university, because there's only good that can come from it. I feel like Oxford is such a lovely place to be. There is quite a great balance of life here. You work really hard, but then you have these great nights out. You go to some lovely balls, you go out. There's so much to do at Oxford that I definitely do not regret the decision I made, and I'm so happy that I didn't listen to the people that 3 years ago told me that I should forget and stop thinking about Oxford. So if you're in that position, good luck to you. If you're applying to Oxford this year, or if you're joining Oxford this year, comment down below and let me know which college you're going to, what you're going to be studying, and I hope to see you around. If you're going to be applying to Oxford this year and you have any questions, do let me know in the comments down below. I wish all of you good luck in your application process, and if you have any questions about anything, specifically for computer science and philosophy, or any of the mathematical subjects, or anything in general, do let me know and I'll try and answer it myself, or do some research and find out and get some information from someone who can answer your question. Also, let me know what other videos you'd like to see on this channel. I'm starting out, and I'd really like it if I got some like comments about what people wanted to see, what kind of videos. Honestly, Oxford is a place for everyone from any background. So if you have the passion, the enthusiasm, and an inquisitive nature, definitely put in an application and you won't regret it. Because even if you don't get in, you learn so much from the process. So that's all for my video today. I'll see you guys in my next video. Don't forget to click that subscribe button, which is on your screen right now. And I'll see you soon. Bye.